Before we jump into today's content, this episode is being sponsored by the Senior Sprint, which is my course for high school senior photographers that teaches you literally every single piece of marketing. But it's not all strategy. In fact, we start at a very foundational level where most photographers don't even tread. And that's the reason why their marketing doesn't feel resonant. And so many photographers today are coming up to me and asking, why is it so hard to get clients now? I hear this from you guys all the time. Class of 2026, class of 2027, they're so hard to market to. Nobody's booking, everybody's waiting into the last minute. This has been going on for a while, in some markets for longer than the last couple of years. But now, pretty much everybody is feeling a little bit of this. Now, it's really easy to blame the economy. It's really easy to think, maybe I should lower my prices. But that's not the answer. I know it feels like it is, but the reason I created the Senior Sprint, first of all, is that I have been teaching this method for years. It's also how I built my six-figure senior photography business. And this is exactly what I teach inside of one-on-one coaching for a much higher investment than what the Senior Sprint is offered at right now. Until July 31st, which is Friday of this week, you can grab it for $497, which is $500 off. Its normal price is $997. It's going back up to that after Friday, and it's worth probably triple that because you also get 4 other courses inside of it. But the main meat of this course is what you need to build a very solid foundation of marketing that you don't have to keep chasing, right? No more chasing trends, no more hopping on this, trying to, figure out how to make yourself super uncomfortable online so that you can get clients. That's not what real good marketing is about. Inside the sprint, we start super foundational and you go deep really quickly. The reason why you're able to do this in a course without me walking you through it like I normally do is because I built AI tools on my 20 plus year senior photography business knowledge that will help you every step of the way. It's kind of like having me in your pocket. And if you purchase during the sale before the July 31st cutoff, you will be invited to a Zoom call on August 18th, where you can ask all your questions and come to me with all the things that came up as you worked through the course, so that you can get coaching. So make sure you go ahead and jump on it right now. Klarna is available at checkout, so you can make payments as well. Everything is linked for you below in the show notes. If you have any questions about it, please hit me up on social. I want to make sure you feel really good about it. So hit me up on social at Renee Bowen on Instagram. Shoot me a DM if you have any questions. You know that thing you do where you tell yourself that a really big shift is coming? Like there's this whole other version of yourself just sitting on the other side of one magical moment, like one retreat, one self-help or business book, one good cry on the closet floor at 11 o'clock at night when everybody's asleep and you're supposed to be editing a gallery. And somewhere in there you think, okay, someday the lightning is going to hit and I'm going to wake up as the woman who charges what she's actually worth, posts without spiraling, and stops flinching every time somebody asks about her pricing. I waited on that lightning for a long time, you guys, and I mean probably years. So today I want to change your mind about that moment because it's not coming. But something better is. So let's get into it. Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we blend rock solid tips with a little bit of magic. I'm your host, Renee Bowen, a life and a business coach, professional photographer, Diet Coke lover, and mom of 3 grown kids, here to walk you through all the ins and outs of identity-based marketing and how to run a business that feels like freedom. Okay, so welcome to today's episode, you guys. Welcome back to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo. I'm your host, Renee. So if you're new here, this is the show where we do strategy and soul at the same time because they aren't really separate, okay? No matter who told you that. I believe you have to feel good to run a business that feels good. So we work from the inside out over here. And right now we are deep into my summer series. This is the last episode in the series where I try and change your mind about something. Okay, I pick one thing and I give you a reframe, basically. Because most of the stuff that's keeping you stuck isn't what you think it is. Most of the time, it's a belief that you inherited, picked up somewhere along the way, and you just never questioned. So that's what we're doing. We're questioning those things together. So today's episode is a big one. Okay. Let me change your mind about the breakthrough. The idea that real change arrives in like some single major dramatic event. So grab your coffee or your wine wherever you are in your day, and let's get into it. So here's the belief that probably almost every creative I coach is secretly running under the surface. And I ran it too, that transformation is like a big moment. That one day the fog lifts, the confidence downloads, and you just become a different person at once, essentially, right? It's a great story. And it's also one of the main reasons, or the main reason, you probably feel behind. Because while you're waiting for this lightning to strike, you're missing the actual mechanism. And the actual mechanism is so small and so boring that your brain refuses to believe that it actually is a thing or counts, but it does. So let's put this into practice a little bit, okay? Because I like evidence that you can actually feel. Think about the last time an inquiry came in and you went to reply with pricing. You probably have automations. I hope you have automations set up for that. But think about when someone is asking you about your pricing. What happens in your body, specifically maybe in your chest, or maybe your whole body? For me, it's like my chest, my upper stomach, solar plexus. There's this little drop, maybe a tightening. Maybe your jaw gets a little tense. Maybe you reread the email that you're going to send 4 times, or maybe you've rewritten it several times just in the process of getting that automation set up. Maybe you want to offer a discount without anyone even asking you that. So that's cortisol, right? That's your nervous system firing a stress response. But what I want you to recognize and just notice is that moment, that little flinch, that feeling in your body isn't nothing. Okay. It's a rep. Every time you feel that and you allow yourself to sort of be taken by it, to shrink back, or you don't sort of recognize it in the moment, right? You're just kind of taken for that ride. Your brain is a pattern seeking machine. So it doesn't build the woman that you visualize on your vision board. It builds the woman that you rehearse in these little moments, these tiny little moments in between the vision boards. So every time you're sending that signal, right? Every time you do something like that, you're sending a signal in the opposite direction of basically where you want to go. And it's also working from a past belief, which takes more energy physically in your body, by the way. So if you feel stuck, I want you to really understand that you're not. You're just extremely well rehearsed. Okay. You've gotten really, really good at being the version of you that you keep saying you want to not be, which is not a character flaw. It's just repetition doing what repetition does. So that right there is the theme of this episode. And I'm going to get into some tips and some actual things that you can do to reverse this. But if 100 little tiny reps builds the identity that you're standing in, then 100 tiny little reps can build a new one. So it's not a lightning bolt. It's not a major moment. It's in the reps. And I don't tell you this because I read it in some book. I mean, I did, but I actually learned it like in my own life, right? Through experience. When I started my photography business, because that was like the first business I'd ever started. And if you'd have told me that I would be a business owner one day, like you'd have told Renee in her 20s or even 30s, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? I have no desire. I had no desire to run my own business. Never even thought it was a thing. I'm Gen X. I was told you grow up, you go to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just sort of changed my major at least 5 times. And I ended up in psychology, which I really loved. But I also got that degree because I thought I could get a good job with that degree. However, with a psychology degree, you do pretty much need a master's. And I was just in a place when I finally graduated with my bachelor's that I wasn't ready to jump back in to another degree program. I did intend to go back. I just didn't know when. And then life took very, very different turns for several years for me. And I never went back. But I say all that because I know that, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys right now, running more than just one business now, that if I hadn't just followed the breadcrumbs of what is lighting me up, what's bringing me joy, I wouldn't be here right now. I mean, I followed those breadcrumbs all the way to Los Angeles from Louisiana on a whim with no job at 25 with two dogs and a Honda Prelude and like $3,000 to my name. But when I started my business, okay, I had three kids under the age of two and a husband with an acting career that was feast or famine and a lot of famine at times. I needed something also that was mine. Yes, I needed to make money, but I needed something that was really mine, an identity that wouldn't just dissolve away into my kids, basically, and other people's needs. But for a long time, I know that what I really did was probably what a lot of you guys are doing, which is waiting to feel ready, right? Waiting for my astrology to line up, waiting for the confidence to show up so I could charge more, just waiting to have validation, even, right? So I could charge more or, feel less like an imposter and more like a business owner. I kept thinking that there would be like this before and after moment. And like one morning I would just wake up and feel transformed and finally look at it differently and feel super ready. But that morning never came. Not like that, not like in one big moment. What came instead was smaller and way less cinematic. It happened over time. A booking where I said my higher price without wanting to throw up. The first time I let a client sit in silence instead of rescuing her and me by jumping in, wanting to discount or make excuses for my prices. A post that I put up from a very clear identity place without panicking about who I was going to maybe offend in the process. None of those were really breakthroughs. I wouldn't call them that, right? But every one of them was a rep. It was practice. And the woman that I am now, the one who built multiple businesses, people told me could not exist the way that I built them, essentially. She got built as well inside of those businesses, right? Not loudly. Under the surface, a lot was going on regular weekdays, weeknights, while I really kind of thought nothing was really happening. So, okay, if it is the reps, right, let's talk about which reps. And I'm going to give you three of them. And you don't need to pick all three. Just pick one right now and let it be embarrassingly small because that's kind of the point. So, the first rep is catch the drop once a day, right before something that usually spikes for you, like a sales call or maybe a pricing email, or I mean, maybe it's opening your banking app, whatever. Just notice the state that you're in. That's it. You're not fixing it yet. You're just sort of like looking at it and calling it what it is with neutrality. Okay, so notice that drop, right? The flinch, the clench, the butterflies in your stomach, whatever that sensation is. Because the second that you become the woman noticing that anxiety, that feeling, whatever you want to call it, you're no longer the woman drowning in it. Okay. You stepped 1 inch outside of it or above it. And 1 inch is a rep. It matters. Most people don't even do this part. Most people have the same thoughts day after day after day after day, years and years and years on end. And they wake up in their 70s and think, why did I do that? Why did I live my life this way? Okay. Look, I am always going to be that girl who leans more, and it's probably my Enneagram 7, who leans more toward life is short, right? Take the trip. I'm not trying to tell you go into debt and be irresponsible, but we simply do not know how much time we have left here. And if I hadn't just gotten in my car on a whim and decided to move across the country, I literally wouldn't have anything in my life, and I love my life. I wouldn't have my kids. So noticing where you are pointing your attention, noticing when you're clenching, noticing what's happening in your body when you're sort of like going against your inner state, right? Just noticing it without putting a lot of charge on it, right? I'm not telling you to beat yourself up about this because that's the opposite of what you want. You just want to go, that's interesting. That's it. Okay, so rep number 2 is letting that hard feeling finish its full sentence, basically. So much of what we got sold basically as personal growth is basically just shushing. Okay. If you feel scared or jealous or small and you immediately just want to slap a positive affirmation on top of it, like a band aid, basically, let's stop doing that. When that prickly feeling comes, let it talk, sit with it, let it be there for like 90 seconds, like a toddler mid meltdown, right? Who just wants to be heard and witnessed. We've all been there if you're a parent. It's called benign neglect, right? In psychology, we were always taught if you don't give them any emotion, if you're just there and you're a support, like if your toddler and your kid with autism, in my case, is having a major meltdown in the middle of the grocery store, and I have been there many times, by the way, you're supposed to just be there lovingly, pick them up, don't let them not hurt themselves, but not give them that emotion back to them. You're supposed to be sort of like this neutral observer who is caring for them, obviously, because you're the parent, but you're not giving them any sort of like emotional hit back. That's kind of what we want to do to these uncomfortable feelings, these things of self doubt that pop in. Just don't give it any emotional charge. And that includes not, getting mad at yourself and pushing it away and giving it that energy. If you can sit with it, if you can let it bubble up and just look at it like you did in the first rep, right? Look at it and then spend some time in it, that's huge. Because a lot of people, like I would say most people, can't physically allow themselves to do this. But what happens when you do this, it might rise, it might get a little bit louder. I always tell my coaching students this when we start this kind of work, bringing the unconscious to the conscious level, there's some stuff that's going to be loud. And there's people in your life who are going to kind of reflect that back to you too. It's very common for those of you who are on sort of a healing journey and a growth journey. For some people in your life who are used to you being a certain way, they're not going to like it because you're a mirror for them. They may not be ready to do this kind of work like you are, and they might be really loud about that. And that doesn't feel good. So you kind of have to be ready for your unconscious mind to do that, for your old habits to get louder, for the inner saboteur to get louder, and for the people in your life to get a little bit louder. Okay. Your job is not to force anything in that situation. And in this rep too, either. It's not about forcing. Okay. It's not about forcing yourself to feel good regardless of what's going on. There's stuff going on, right? Noticing it and then being really honest about what's going on, allowing yourself to kind of sit with it and just sort of like not give it that energy back to it. That's when you step into empowerment. That's when it no longer has control over you. It's huge. I'm telling you, those first 2 reps, they're real big. And so rep 3 is that I want you to make one decision a day, right? And don't be a slave to your inbox about it, right? So here's what I mean by that. Like, it's not a goal necessarily, because a goal says something like, I want to sell X amount of offers by this date or book this many clients by this date. But a decision says, I'm the photographer the really amazing families in my town recommend by name. And it's already true. And then, and this is really the hard part, when you check your quiet inbox and reality seems to disagree with you, right? Maybe the inquiries aren't really coming in as much as you would like them to. you let reality be wrong for now. Okay. Your circumstances are always running a few steps behind who you're becoming. The gap there is not proof that it isn't working. The gap is just a lag. Hold the decision and let that lag do its thing. Okay. Because what you're doing here in rep 3 is you're being a little delusional. And that's kind of the key. Because if you stay stuck in your actual 3D reality of, there could be a lot of hard things going on. So I'm not saying be toxically positive, right? Because that's what I started saying in the beginning of this. It's not about just slapping an affirmation. If you do the steps in this order, step 1, you're actually noticing, and then rep 2, you're allowing yourself to actually see it and feel it for what it really is. But then in the third one, you're making a different decision. You're pointing your attention where you want to go, as opposed to where you've been, and as opposed to where everybody else is telling you where you are. You might be getting a lot of input of, this is where I'm at, but that's not where you want to be. So that's where that clarity on who you really want to become and what you're working toward, that's where that piece comes in, because you gotta put your attention on where you want to go. Okay. Think about, I always use this analogy, and I think Tony Robbins is probably the one that I heard about it from first, but it's true. A lot of people who've been in car accidents, and I've been in situations like this, not really bad ones, but people will say things like, last thing I remember is just seeing the telephone pole or the tree. And that's really because you looked in that direction, right? Wherever you look, wherever you turn, that's where the wheel is going to. Same kind of thing when you're learning. I mean, I played softball for years and tennis. So you can look at it from a sports thing. Wherever you're looking, right? They tell you this when you're batting. Where do you want the ball to go? How are you positioning your body? Because where you're looking is where the ball is going to go. It's the same idea as what I'm talking about in rep 3. Where are you looking? Are you looking at where you don't want to be? Or are you looking at where you're going? And if you don't know where you're going, that's an issue, right? Because you have to at least have a feeling of it. Maybe you can't conjure up like the exact vision of that now, but you probably can conjure up the feeling. And that's where manifestation starts. And we're not going to get into all of this in today's episode, because then it'll be like 2 hours. But rep 3 is about you deciding where you're putting your attention and allowing yourself to really go there, even when it feels silly, because it's going to. And then, okay, one more little bonus rep, because it's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. Move your body and give yourself like 5 quiet minutes somewhere in the day where nothing is really pulling at your attention. Quiet your mind. Those are reps too. And they're telling your nervous system that you're safe, you're steady, and you're ready to create. I know those seem very simple, because they are. That's the whole deal. We overcomplicate the shit out of everything, especially those of us with really active minds like myself. My husband laughs at this all the time. I'll give you a really funny example. Yesterday, we were out walking the dog. We do that every day. It's sort of like our routine, even if I'm in the middle of editing a podcast or doing something really important, between 6 and 7, usually now lately it's been closer to 7 because it's so hot, but we take him out for his evening walk, and it's our time to sort of like connect after a long day, be outside, put my feet in grass. Like, it's not like I'm going on a power walk for this, but it's moving my body. It's getting me in the moment, and it's helping me, connect with my husband. So anyway, we're on our walk, and we are on the paseos here, and we see a guy on rollerblades. Well, Andrew he decided last year that he wanted to start rollerblading again. So, and he's already tall. So on these things, he's like super tall. And you guys, I think I've probably posted some of the images on my Instagram story. He looks hilarious because he wears his pads, his knee pads, his elbow pads. Like, he looks kind of like a giant toddler in his like rollerblading gear. but he doesn't want to hurt himself. I mean, he's 54. He's like, if I fall, I'm like, I'm going to break something. Right. But he's really good at it. I will say that he hasn't fallen. But anyway, we see this guy passing in. He's probably in his like early 30s, I would say. And Andrew was like, oh yeah, he's got all his gear on like I do. Good for him or whatever. He goes, but I'm more steady on mine than that guy is. And we were just sort of like, laughing, not at the guy, but like just laughing um, at the fact that, rollerblading is actually hard at our age. And he goes, yeah, but I don't wear a helmet. And I was like, you should. And he goes, well, I'm really steady on them. I'm not going to fall. And he goes into this long explanation about how he doesn't need to wear a helmet. And in my mind, the anxiety brain that I have, I'm like, no, it's not about you falling. It's about you getting hit by a biker. Or, I mean, there's kids on these electric bikes on the Paseos all the time now. I'm like, you could be like hit out of nowhere, somebody's dog, maybe you hit a pebble. Like, you have a brain injury at your age, dude. Like, I don't want to feed you applesauce and then have to like pull your plug. And let me tell you right now. And then I go down this whole rabbit hole. And he's just like looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm catastrophizing. That's what people with OCD anxiety do. And I'm like, look, if I have to pull your plug, I'm literally, as I'm pulling it, I am going to say, I told you to wear a helmet and you didn't listen to me. And I'm going to haunt you in the afterlife because of it, because you made me pull your plug. He's like, wow, your brain. I'm like, yeah, no, this is what I do. This is what I do. So I know that about myself. I know that I sort of have to let it take me down the anxiety highway all the way so that I can actually like get certainty, right? That's really kind of what's happening in that moment, is that I'm craving some sort of certainty. And I want to see, okay, I can survive that if that happens, I can survive that. It's really not fun, right? But we do the same thing in our businesses. We do the same thing. And maybe yours is not as dramatic as mine. And I really hope it isn't, for your sake, because it's a lot in my brain. But we do the same thing in our businesses. We overcomplicate things. And this episode in particular, I just wanted to highlight that I think a lot of people are waiting for this moment, this breakthrough, this change in astrology, this shift in the consciousness, whatever it is. And yes, while some of those things are supportive of the energy of change, you are the master of your own ship. You are the one who starts this process, and you can start it at any time, and you can start it at any age. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to decide you want something different, bigger, better, more, whatever. These reps are the key. Honestly, you start here, and it starts with noticing. So stop waiting to become a different person before you're allowed to act like her. That's backwards. You don't feel your way into a new identity and then start behaving differently. You start behaving differently, feeling differently in little, tiny, unglamorous ways over and over and over again. Every time you do that, you're casting a new vote for that new identity that gets built underneath you while you're busy just living your actual life. So do the reps this week, okay? And tell me what starts to move for you, not just in your bookings, but in you. Because the moment who you're being starts to change, your future has to come find you. It has no choice. If this episode spoke to you, do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit follow wherever you're watching or listening to this, and then send it to a friend. Let them know. You already know who needs it. And if you want to go deeper into all of this, that's what we do inside of coaching. We can go deep pretty fast when you're ready. I also write about things like this over on my Substack. And if you're a senior photographer, the senior sprint, the first part of that program is a lot of this work too. But if you're ready to go deep, I'd love to chat about what your vision of your future really is, and then help you bring it to life. Thank you guys for listening. As always, I hope you have a fabulous rest of the week. Be good to yourself. Until next time, love you. Bye.